Welcome back to the Positively Jacked podcast, where we take some of the internet's worst fitness advice, nutrition advice, wellness advice, put it in a blender, and deliver it to you with something helpful and actionable. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. Check out our other social media channels. And if you feel so inclined, and because we'd love if you did, drop us a review or some comments so we keep bringing conversations that you want to hear. Hello.
Oh, hello. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Happy Pride Month. Happy Men's Health Month. So many cool things happening right now.
Yes, absolutely true.
Today's episode is a fun one. This one has spurred from probably about 4 or 5 clients that we've worked with, because the clients that we work with I feel like we cater a lot to lifestyle. And the interesting part about lifestyle, as far as it's being different from training athletes, is lifestyles goals don't always have, or lifestyle training plans don't always have definitive start and end date goals.
Yep.
And we've gotten into areas with a lot of clients where, what do you do when you don't have a distinct goal, like a body comp change by a certain date, a lift, a competition, or even better, what if you don't want one right now? What if you're just happy with how things are in your hard-earned maintenance phase?
I was going to say, it's kind of something that crops up, I feel like, when we've made good progress and you're kind of entering what, like in cycling, they call like the flat road.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You hit that flat road and things are feeling doable, easy. Everything is figure outable. So, those of us who crave challenge or who are used to working towards something, all of a sudden find ourselves like, oh, all right, I'm comfortable. Should I be doing something else?
Right. Exactly. And it's interesting because so as it stands right now, I had a goal of doing a marathon. And that's what has like dictated some training and nutrition and stuff. But you have done a lot of, I wouldn't even necessarily going after goals. Like, you have benchmarks that you hit, you have maintenance and consistency. But is there anything specific?
I think you're being really kind. I just don't have a goal right now.
Well, no, but yes, but that's the whole theme of the episode. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, it's interesting because nobody would say that you're not regimented as though you have several goals.
Yeah, I am not without discipline, but at present, I do not have a fixed goal that I have structured training, nutrition, schedule around. No.
Right. And as far as me, like, my hay is kind of in the barn. I run in 2 weeks. I've done my stuff. There's not much I can do between now and then other than staying healthy.
It's a really interesting dynamic and contrast between the two of us. And I'm not going to lie, like, and this is why we're here. I have a little bit of FOMO.
Okay.
And we talked about it. I'm like, oh, that's so, like, not that I in any way want to train for a marathon, but like, I don't. No, thank you.
My feedback probably put the final nail in that coffin.
Yeah, I think the last episode pretty much nailed that for me, that I don't need that as a goal ever. But I think the thing is like, I watch YouTube, I subscribe, I fan certain accounts, and they're all training for things. That's why I watch it. It's exciting to watch somebody, make something happen and put in the work. I love process. And I love, sticking to something. I'm very regimented. So of course I have FOMO if I'm watching all these people around me have a goal. So what do I do?
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of potential complexity that comes with this. And hopefully by the end of the episode, we can simplify it for some people. So just so people know our roadmap for this episode, the goal is to go over why it's normal and often beneficial to hit a no goal phase, how to use time in between very specific time-oriented goals, when goals are helpful versus when they could be disruptive and potentially harmful, what to focus on instead of chasing a traditional goal, and our own personal experiences around this idea.
Yep, so we love stories.
We love stories, and we also love to tell stories, because It's just so much fun. It's so fun telling it in like a story format.
Yeah.
But okay. So first one, a little bit of reflection. We kind of went over it currently, but what was a time where you realized that you did not have a goal other than current? Like, was there a specific time where you were just like, goals could not happen?
Oh, I mean, I'm a mom, so postpartum is a clear time when goals just you are on the back burner.
Yeah.
Like for something like, okay, like we all have something maybe passively there. Like as a mom, you want to sleep through the night. You want to feel like your body is yours again. But like the idea of doing anything that requires greater commitment than thinking ahead no more than a few days at a time is often, I'm not going to say never, but often just not feasible.
Right. It removes you fairly acknowledge that it removes the ability to look in the time frame of even like a quote unquote short-term goal. Now, technically a short-term goal could be, for the day, but at the same time, like it's that planning element. It's just the pressure of looking anywhere beyond a certain scope and being like, yeah, I can handle stuff that affects that. It's like, no freaking way. Not with a brand new baby.
Never.
Yeah. So with that in mind, we talked a lot around that time, but I don't know if I've ever actually gotten to crack that egg as far as like your mindset in and around that as much. Cause like we got to train together and stuff like that, and little KK sitting in her little seat.
You did my postpartum.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess coming from, because this was after you had found CrossFit, after you had been doing it for a decent amount of time, I want to say
2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years. And so with that, I guess, how did you handle that shift? Because you're a very detail oriented planner.
Yeah.
And so to just have to be okay with like, I have no clue what my sleep is going to be like. I have no clue what my, house cleaning is going to look like. I have no clue when I'm going to be able to do certain things.
Yeah. You crash is the right word. And if Erica's listening, she would tell you that she came over several times in the first weeks because I just could not stop crying. Like you take the most structured, schedule adherent person, not just in the gym, but work. I've always been a very regimented person. And you just like ball that up and throw it outside. And I think at one point she came to my house and I came outside crying with KK and I was like, my life is over. I've ruined my life. So yeah, tough. Very, very tough times.
But I guess what was the biggest help?
I think time and then talking to other people who had been through it and, just starting to make little shifts toward a normal that I could be happy with.
Okay.
I think that's when I took up like reading more books. I took up a lot more mobility in my schedule. I just shifted the focus to just showing up. Kind of like I did in pregnancy. Like I think I thought when I came back from pregnancy, which is also kind of a just show up time period because you never know how you're going to feel, especially in the late weeks. I think I thought I'd come back and it'd be like, we're ready to go, 4th trimester. And I'd read that 4th trimester was hard, but it was, that's not me. I'm going to be different. Me and my unmedicated birth dreams and big hopes and thoughts about myself. And I came into 4th trimester and just hit the wall. And so I just had to shift the perspective of like, okay, we got to make smaller goals and find the wins where we can find them. And the process really became the thing I knew I could do. I knew I could complete postpartum and I could do that right. I could go and start making frequency the goal. I could introduce gymnastics back, which have always been a love of mine. I love gymnastics. I could make sure KK was in the gym with me. I could say, you know what, I'm going to participate in that first open in 2015 after KK. Like it just became things I could show up for and a frequency target that I could hit.
I like that. A frequency target. We'll get into some
I'm foreshadowing
goal adjacent terminology and areas to focus on a little bit later. But I guess one thing I would love to bring into the fold here is, so you had been doing CrossFit and gym going stuff for 2 to 3 years before KK.
Yeah.
What elements, if any, from your baseline were you able to take with you and either, adjust but still keep like their essence, or completely utilize in that interim time?
Oh, I mean, for me, it was doing hard things or things that felt hard. I think that was always the big thing with CrossFit. Like you do hard things. And so I just made it like that was the scratch to the itch. Did I do something hard today? Did I do something that required extra effort?
But to be fair, your perceived effort,
yes, absolutely,
hard, not something you would have considered hard at any given.
Yeah,
your definition of hard changed dramatically in that calendar year.
Yeah, it was contextual to the moment I was in for sure. Like, and I'm not saying I was like super fit before I got pregnant or like by any means. Like I didn't, but I just stopped comparing myself to what I was completely.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Even though like it didn't take exceptionally long to get back to that point.
Well, there physically, that's what I was getting at. Is there were elements that we're able to hold, right?
Yes.
Like, what's the theme of going to CrossFit so consistently? Movement. Humans are designed to move.
Right.
And so you might not have been able to go to a class, but movement and pliability, going for walks, yoga, like you said, at home, like getting into the very minimal, but like movement, that principle. We talk about that a lot, right? Firm, principle, flexible method. That's the stuff that I was kind of poking at, was like things that you took as part of your base.
Yep.
And were able to hold them, but you had to change the way they looked. You had to change the way they felt, like do something hard. I love that. But at the same time, hard could have just been getting out of the house and going for a really long walk that day. It's still physical movement. It's something difficult. But if you're 4 weeks, not even, then,
well, I mean, in those early weeks, and parents will know this, you're in cluster feed mode. So getting away from the couch to the gym, which was across town at the time, for an hour without your boobs exploding or your kid losing it without you there because she's not taking a bottle, that's a huge, like, that's a leap,
right,
in weeks 4 through 6. So like, I mean, we're not talking like, hey, I'm back to doing the workout Karen or all those things. Like we were focused on like, I got to get away from the house for ladies' night, which we had Tuesdays, and I could be gone exactly 90 minutes before this gets uncomfortable physically. And I have a screaming kid with my husband at home, plus all the emotions that happen in those first few weeks too, that are just all over the place.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So baseline principles tried to be held, but the methodology and what they looked like, vastly different.
Oh, completely.
Well, so I like that though, because, a lot of people think when they build out these elements that are a part of their goals or part of the journey with their goals, that because they are linked, that they almost depend on each other. Like I have to have this goal of X in order to justify these habits or these methods. And it's kind of the flip around, right? It's that base understanding and how you want to apply it in a bunch of different ways. And I feel like that's not really celebrated enough, taken into consideration enough. Like if it doesn't have an endpoint, and not only that, but like an endpoint that that gives you some gusto, aka like something that kind of fills you up for that goal. It's just like people think if you're not moving forward hardcore that you're stepping backwards somehow.
Yeah, people see the milestone or the end deliverable as being the mark, the measure, and they don't see everything beneath it as equal to that, because it's in support of that, right? I did all these things so that I could run this marathon. But they don't celebrate those things, the nutrition, the sleep, the stretching, the hard runs. Like all the miles that build up to that is the same.
Right. It's all on the same thing, but it's like that's the cherry on top. It's nice to accomplish that, but look at the body of work that should also be celebrated. Like it
Right.
really should. And taken into almost just as good, if not better, than the actual end goal.
The quote I'm thinking of, and you know this, but like I've been rewatching all the Road to the Games the past few weeks. And I can't remember what year it was. It was the year they went back to the ranch and they ran the 8K. That was The trail 8 click or 10 clicks or something. Yeah, it was the last year at Carson. So it was 2016. I hate that I know this much. I'm like an encyclopedia at this point. Sam Dancer had a stress fracture in his leg.
Yep.
And so he had trained to hit the podium. He, all the mindset that an elite athlete goes through to be ready for this milestone, the games. He has a stress fracture show up in the week or two before. And so people approached him like, oh man, you must be so disappointed. And he's like, I perfectly executed this weekend, all the things that I had to do to make it through, all the training, all the prep, all the resilience. It was a perfectly executed weekend. And that's what I think of when you flip it. You flip the script on that.
No, I love that. That's absolutely awesome. It's removing success or failure on the end piece, on the bookend. Yeah. I like that a lot. Shout out, Sam. I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but as always, you give loving hugs and you're incredibly kind and genuine every time I see you. So, no, I love that because it's tough to get over. It's tough to get over that we crave progress, like moving forward and accomplishing something. There's like biochemical reactions to that. That's hardwired into us. But it doesn't always have to be an end goal. It doesn't always have to be this like benchmark hit. It can be just as much about, a different type of acknowledgement, consistency over time, altering your own perception. So it's as much about like pursuing and gaining rather than something, new or something like attained.
Yeah. But how do you start when you find yourself in those moments? And we know a lot of people who kind of their first place is to be like, I don't have a goal. I feel bad.
Right.
Like that's an oversimplification, but bear with me. Like, what should the first thing they do instead be? You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And there's many steps, right? Flexible methods. But to me, time between goals is recovery and reflection time.
Yeah.
Because in certain pursuits, right, you will stretch certain resources thin. Because some people will do it as best they can, but there is a variation of blinders and boundaries that come with that pursuit. And if you don't take time to learn or reflect on that pursuit, then you very much so could run the same mistakes or even worse ones pursuing another one immediately after, right? You're not taking time to process what worked, what didn't, because as we've talked about on so many podcasts before, no plan, no path is perfect. It's an illusion.
Yeah.
And so that is where I would have people start. It's like, I want a goal. It's like, cool. Reflect on where you're at right now. Reflect on goals of the past. What has worked? What has not? Are you like, based on the last goal you had, have the elements that it took to attain that, have those recovered? Because if they haven't, you're doing a disservice to yourself to not do that self check-in prior to setting it out. And then just figure questions out. Ask yourselves, pieces like, do I have the right routine? What feels forced? What feels effortless? What am I or who am I when I'm not necessarily chasing something?
Yeah.
Because those are the things you resort back to.
Yeah.
And you've got to stay in touch with those as much as possible.
We work with an amazing consulting firm, and they use a model called the 3 C's. So I don't know if I've ever talked to you about the 3 C's, but it's actually for leadership development.
No, I think I just read about these in a book recently. So
Really?
I think so. You go.
I won't quiz you in public, but clarity, climate, and competence.
Yep. Yay.
That's Andy's stuff. So clarity, obviously, of what you're trying to achieve, why it matters to you, and how you will go about achieving it, or what it took last time to do it. Now, the climate is kind of the tangible aspects around your current resources and your habits, your structure, your processes, culture, relationships, all the things that are in support of that.
Right.
And obviously, the competence comes in when it's like, okay, if this is a better version of a goal you've already done, like if you were to run a repeat marathon, or like you wanted to get back into competitive CrossFit, does your current level of skills, behaviors, knowledge, competence match what it would take to do it again at even the same rate or better?
Right. And if not, start putting what that might have to look like.
Yep.
And as that unfolds, ask yourself, am I really wanting what I think I'm wanting?
Yep.
A little mini experiment before we go to the next part is a interesting little piece. Trying to go through a week of logging things that don't have a performance metric attached.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one, because then it becomes more of a self-assessment and self-gauging tool as opposed to utilizing an external means. And I really love it, because I know this is weird, but like asking somebody like, hey, did you go to the gym this week? It's like, yeah, cool. What was your mood? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, I didn't ask about your workout. I didn't care what the training was. I didn't care about it. It's like, what was your mood when you went to the gym? And it's just like, nobody ever thinks of that. But it is a cool thing to check in. Like, are you happy going there? That's a good place to start. It has nothing to do with necessarily your goal, but it's a pretty big influence on if you're looking to train for something specific.
Yeah, if you in a non-goal state are apathetic at best, is adding something with a rigid schedule and possibly increased frequency like the right move right now?
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. It's such a good
That's a great one.
It's a great little self check-in, but it's everybody attaches things to numbers and metrics, and it's like, let's flip this up a little bit.
You said something at the beginning that I want to bring back, because you talked about, or you teased goals being helpful or not, and I think that might be a new lens for people. The idea that goals could not be helpful.
I mean, I'm a walking embodiment of it based on the last episode. Like I had set out into this goal of repeating a half marathon pace for a marathon. That was not a helpful goal. It set me up with such a hard ego check hit. Like,
what's that TikTok meme going around right now? It's, that was rude. That was really effing rude. And that's what I think of in that last episode.
Yep. Without question. But yeah, no, goals can be helpful or harmful. I think it's interesting that people are like, but it's my goal, how could it harm me? It's like, we can screw up goal setting. We can do things for all the wrong reasons, and we can also wrong time, and we can do it without the self-assessment, which is what we were just talking about. Like, if you have no clue as to the base in which you're starting, you could have set a goal with a complete disconnect. And so we'll start with goals being helpful, or we'll segue back and forth. But potential signs of like a goal being healthy. One of the first ones, and one of my favorite things, curiosity or joy leading the way. Because a lot of times when people set a goal, so you brought up CrossFit. a lot of people bring up CrossFit competition in a comparative manner, right? I want to compete, and in order to compete, I need to be able to do these workouts as fast or faster than fill in the blank athlete, right? That's a really shaky foundation because you're pitting it in a comparative manner. Whereas if you're going through your natural joy and curiosity, it's something that adds to self-fulfillment as opposed to comparison. And that's a great place for a goal to start, is self-fulfillment. Energy is present for the experimentation. I love this one just because, like we had just 2 minutes talked about, like, if you're apathetic going to the gym and you don't have a goal, it's not like it's just gonna sprout because you're like, I want to qualify for something. Like, if the energy's not there, it's not there.
Well,
you got to assess that.
I feel like it's like the entry conversation we have with so many people is, how can I increase my motivation? And I'm like, that's not an ever spring, it just doesn't manifest out of nowhere. I'm just gonna suddenly feel more motivated.
Right.
And it's gonna renew every time I hit this button.
a metaphorical gasoline. What can I pour onto my motivation fire that gets me going? It's like, it's not like that. Doesn't really work that way.
No.
And then the last one, healthy goal. It's more additive than disruptive. Right?
Yeah,
like
a big one.
It's going to require some critical thinking. It's going to require some understanding. And disruptive is when you enter a goal without understanding. Like, I'll take my half marathon pace to marathon pace as an example again. I was shooting for a pace that disrupted every single long run I had and made it not as good as it could have been, because it was such a misinformed start point.
And I think that's not to say that you're not going to hit bumps in any goal journey or and on the road to anything. Like, you're going to hit bumps. That's part of it. That's part of the process. But there's a disruptive point to where we are underwater. Right.
And 10 weeks of not a long run feeling good was being underwater. It was interesting because the goal with those backstory with those long runs is that you just got comfortable and felt like you could move on your feet for 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And at no point did I feel competent at any distance that it was requiring from the program. So yeah, it's friction, getting over hurdles and stuff like that is part of it. But like, those runs were not, they were being additive to me. It's the same way I say Murph. If you do Murph, Memorial Day Murph, it's not additive in any way other than a character builder, because that workout just beats you senseless. You are sore for days, all this other stuff. But like, everybody's proud they do it. They do it every year. But like, it's a character builder workout. That's really the only thing it builds.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a difference between doing Murph for a day and doing Murph for weeks, every week. That's different. And I think that's how you can start to break down where goals start, and reiterate where goals start to not feel helpful. It's pressure, it's punishment.
Yep.
It's driven, if you're, shooting to compare yourself to others, it's driven by comparison and shame, or the idea of perfection or one-upmanship. Like, it doesn't have a lot of value other than beating another person, maybe. Like, for that context specifically.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And it's out of balance. Like, how much balance, not that I totally believe in the idea of balance, but like, how much balance do the other factors in your life get if you're training 8 hours a day?
Right.
Which is why I don't do it.
I say one of the many reasons we don't.
One of the many. One of the many.
So we know what goals are good, or how goals can be good, and how they can be takeaway. When a goal doesn't necessarily fit, but you want it really bad. And I love
FOMO.
Yeah, exactly. So like, that's the hard part, is it's hard to see people with such motivation and goals and not think, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
I want that feeling.
I want the podium. I want
something, right? Like some illusory type thing, but it's, when you want, just because you want something in that moment or something kind of stirs that in you, that's good, but it doesn't necessarily mean like tunnel vision in that moment, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you got to make sure things fit at a certain point, and if they don't fit at that time, then maybe that's your call to action to lean into the things that could help you establish a time
Yep.
when that is a pursuit that can come into the fold.
Yep. And it's real because I think there are a lot of us, we have a saying, or maybe it's just my saying that I say several times a day to keep myself sane, but I can't whole ass more than a few things. Like, I don't half-ass anything, and I can only whole ass a few things before there's no time left.
Yeah.
Or before the things that are absolutely non-negotiable in my life start to suffer. And I think that's why a lot of people like me, there's people that would do really well with a goal, right? I'm highly compliant, I'm disciplined, I have great habits, I do all the things. Don't endeavor on a marathon.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because it would put me into half-ass category on something that's important to me when I need to whole ass it.
Right. Exactly. Well, and let's go back to when goals are healthy, right? It's joy and it's curiosity.
Yep.
If something stirs you and excites you, that's not necessarily coming from you. It's a catalyst, don't get me wrong. But then in that moment, why does that excite you? What makes you curious about it? What would give you joy from that? And then kind of deep diving down and into it, because then the motivation starts to be yours and come from you. Because that person's path as to what led them to the point where they're this model or this aspirational thing is completely different. And so you have to find that chord that resonates and understand that you can want something and still choose not to chase it right now, because that's not failure. That's just context.
Yeah. You don't have to turn everything that you want to do into a mandate.
Yes. Absolutely.
If you deferred goals, like not every season is the season.
Delayed gratification's a thing, right?
Love it. I mean, I'm not. Here's the thing: we can say that, but I'm still not going to run a marathon ever. The delayed gratification is
that's because a marathon doesn't
stoke
your curiosity or your joy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The only curiosity you have about marathons is how the hell people do this.
I do. But I mean, we've talked about, big hot thing right now is high rocks. And I look at so many people doing high rocks. I know people who do high rocks. And that looks fun to me.
Yeah.
And I think this maybe gets into our next segment, but like there are things I love about high rocks that I can do right now and satiate the FOMO a little bit without signing up and having to train for the full event. Like there are substitutes, goal adjacent substitutes that I think, you've articulated really well to a lot of the people we work with. And I want to start unpacking those because I just think what it's done for me in this season of my life, and I know what it's done for them, has made such a difference in keeping them progressing or realizing that what they're doing is still progress.
Right. No, I love that, because the goal adjacent substitutes that's exactly what they are. They're just process driven. They're ways to look at the journey. And so I love the way we put this, that the framework is you're swapping a finish line for a compass.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that, because then it's just about orienting, right? You're orienting yourself in a direction, not for any other reason than it's kind of a leading you
the right move.
Direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, okay. So for people who want examples of goal adjacent substitutes, I'm going to start it because it's my favorite one. It's one of my, I love this so much. Process anchors. So things like keeping track of your water intake, the total amount you move in a week, sleep quality. Like, are you going to bed because you're tired and waking up and feeling rested? None of those have metrics, numbers, like anything like that, other than weekly movement. You could put minutes on it, but there's no intensity factors. There's nothing like that. And so it's going to the core of how do I want to feel consistently? And that's a really good place to be, because if you always want to have that consistency, there's elements to it, but it doesn't necessarily take such specific measures and such finish lines to get there.
And it gives you that little dose if you hit a streak, or like we'll pick up the one that I just started this week because we talked about change, 2 weeks ago, is I started tracking my macros this week. I'm on day 5. And I wasn't tracking before. I was being mindful, but not tracking. And I'm doing that again because it's like, I want to dial it in. It's a process anchor. It's an adjacent piece. It's not because I'm training for anything big or noteworthy. It's just like, let's just give myself something to focus on.
Yeah. That doesn't have a finish line. Right?
That I feel good for.
It's what is.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. Next one outside of process anchors, experiential goals.
Love this.
Goals that have all to do with experience, nothing to do with necessarily recording it. So, trying a new class, a new fitness class, people, CrossFitters love you to death, but have you tried a Pilates reformer class? Are you willing to be humbled that hard?
That's like really hard.
Yeah. Have you cooked a new meal? Everybody gets in these meal prep trains that's, why don't you count macros anymore? Because I couldn't stand chicken and rice anymore. And it's like, well, did you cook new meals?
Yep.
They thought their goal was sustained by these simple things, explore new trails, something new. Going and trying something new is a cool thing to experience, and it fills you out. It gives you fulfillment. It's natural curiosity anyways, but it doesn't have to be proven as a metric.
It cannot even be like a new thing. I'm training at a different time this summer.
Oh, you crazy wild person.
And yeah, let me tell you, it's giving me a lot of joy because I don't have to be back for school, Neil and KK heading off to school and work. So I can stay at the gym a little longer in the morning during the week. And just that little bit of like freedom is all of it, everything. It's everything. The youth would say it slaps right now.
The youth would say it slaps. Oh my God. Oh, okay. So we've got process anchors and experiential goals.
Yeah. Another one that I like to add that I'll steal your thunder by reading one is skill development. Just find something you can just hyper focus in, get obsessive about for a little bit. Not obsessive in the clinical way, but like obsessive with joy about.
Yeah. Well, and skill acquisition comes from the curiosity bit. What's something you just want to feel a little more competent at?
Or even if it's not new, revisit something. Shoulder overhead mobility is one. We all need that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all need that.
I got called out the other day for my posture because it's lacking. And I'm just like, oh no. I always had such good posture.
Neil's coach Jordan has been working on his hip mobility because he has to step over so many baby gates every day.
That's a skill.
So he's been doing the 90-90s.
Yes, shin block flow and prep for navigating baby gates, Legos and toys and all sorts of stuff. Basically your own Ninja Warrior course.
I love adding like yoga moves. Try a challenging yoga move and just work on it for a week. It doesn't have to be like an exceptional thing. It can just be like, just add minutes of something sometimes does it.
Oh, the simplest one I will tell anybody to give a try is standing on one foot.
I know. We actually were talking about that today too.
Yeah.
The balance that a lot of what we work on. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Just have no idea what it takes to stand on one foot for a minute.
Yep.
Yeah. And then for those of you out there like, oh, it's easy, do it with your eyes closed. And then tell me that it's easy. Like, challenge your proprioception, challenge your kinesthetic awareness, dude. Like, it's simple, but boy, is it humbling. Like, oh, wow, I never realized I couldn't stand on one of my own feet for a minute with my eyes closed.
Just create a leveling guide for that. Do it with your eyes closed. Do it while throwing a ball in the air and catching it again. Like,
Right. Hey, you know what?
We could level that up to infinity.
That's one of our next reels. Skill driving.
All right, your
Uh,
next one.
Mindset. Kind of went over it earlier. It's, how you perceive stuff.
Yeah.
Check in on it, right? Gratitude, breath work, journaling. I'll talk about that all the time, but like a lot of people in the absence of goals think that they don't have to check in with themselves, or they don't have to utilize stuff that looks inward, because they don't need to check in if they're not putting out something that is like a finish line. But realistically, people need to check in with how they feel about stuff, what their mentality is surrounding it. So it goes back to, like you said, like, are you going to the gym and you're feeling like melancholy? Like, does this mean something to you? Or is it was part of a routine because you wanted to get healthy? Congratulations, you made a maintenance phase now. Is it still giving you something? Is it still fulfilling you? And if not, that's okay. It doesn't mean you have to uproot it, but at least you're doing that practice, because it's going to help in general make you feel grounded.
Yeah. And I think we've been brainstorming some upcoming episodes, and I feel like the journal work around how we feel and things we do throughout the day in support of our mental health is so, so important.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think people, get so tied up in the aesthetics, they don't think, again, it all starts on the inside, like we say.
Yeah, absolutely. Starts from within, starts from you.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of adjacent to the adjacent one. So adjacent to mindset practices, joy tracking.
Yeah.
Are you happy? Like, you'd be amazed at how many people like you could ask that to, and it takes them back for a second. Like, people just don't check in with themselves if they're happy, content, joyful, any like baseline positive emotion.
Yeah, well, we're in difficult times, but yeah, there are a lot of people you could ask that question to, and you get the pregnant pause, and you're like, oh,
right. Okay, a more fair question. Are you happy with how you are doing things right now?
exactly.
There we go. Little more refined. So
yeah,
all of the goal adjacent pieces all of those had nothing to do with an end goal, nothing to do with the finish line.
no. And I think it could be said too, like, sometimes just enjoy the view of where you're at for a minute. And I think that goes to the joy tracking one a little bit. It's like, just that's still moving forward if you stop to look around. Like, that doesn't mean you are not progressing. That doesn't mean you're not moving forward.
Well, could you imagine this? Like, I love the idea of this with what you just said. Could you imagine being in a room where somebody's bragging about like climbing Everest, and then somebody's like, what was the view like? And they didn't have an answer.
Well, to be fair, you can't stay up there that long because of the oxygen situation.
Sure. Easy nitpicker. I'm saying, how funny would it be if somebody was so driven with the finish line mentality of, I'm going to climb Everest. They get to the top and then they go right back down. And somebody's like, hey, how was the view? And it's like, so you went to the top of Everest and you didn't look around. The second you got there, you're like, I'm here, gone. Because that was the goal? No. Take a second.
No, you didn't.
Look around. Grab a jar of snow from Everest. Bring it home with you. Like, you would take a moment.
Actually, pick up an oxygen tank and bring it down for me while you're at it. No, I'm just kidding. I fell down there. I fell down the Everest rabbit hole a few years ago. But speaking of other goals, I would never have.
Yeah, there's a few different
That's
things.
an insane.
It's awesome. I don't think I'm ever gonna do it, but never say never, right?
Please don't. I don't want to have that fear for my friend. Please don't. Chase any other goal, not that one.
Not Everest. You're right. I'll do
like
K2.
That and like that and like alligator wrestling. We're okay not to have those. I need a best friend.
That's fair. Okay. So we've gone over all the aspects of in and around when goals are helpful, when they're not, and what to do in the phase that they just might not have a place, or at least what you're used to. So any final thoughts?
No, I think, what I feel like what I've been on the journey with my, however many years since maybe I had Caitlin is when I've become more conscious of this topic is, building a life where you don't need necessarily the ultimate goal or to be the ultimate person to feel successful or to feel like you're doing something.
Yeah.
And that took a while to get to because I think a lot of us, like we talked about, can't flip that spectrum, that pendulum where the milestone is the win, not everything that happens in service of it.
Right. Yeah.
So, but now I'm gold star. Now I could write the book on it because I live goal adjacent life.
I think that's the title of your book, Goal
I think it
Adjacent
is.
Life.
Watch out, James Clear, I'm coming.
Let's go. Oh my God.
What
love
about
that.
you?
Oh, I just think if there's one thing I've learned to appreciate is not rushing things for the sake of rushing. Don't confuse lack of urgency with a lack of progress. Things take time to marinate. Maintenance is useful, right?
Yeah.
It's quiet proof that you've built something that lasts, right? In order for something to last, you don't have to constantly keep proving it and building it and expanding it and all this other stuff. Like, it should be solid as is too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be my main thought.
So our summer challenge, our early summer challenge, after listening to this episode, think about your goal adjacent experiment. Think about something that you could do that is not an ultimate goal, that is not in service of an ultimate goal, but just falls into the category of skill development, mindset practice, joy tracking, a process anchor, experiential things, like anything to just kind of be. Or
But
have fun
also
with.
understand that it's okay to do that.
Yeah, that it's
You're
okay
not
not to
being
like.
lazy. You're letting it exist for a second.
Yep. Disconnect from influencers and just be.
Oh, I love that. Last pieces, right? Share the episode if you feel so inclined. We like to expand our audience. We like to get different tags and different conversation starters. So, interact with us as much as you can. As far as your goals go, we've already given you plenty of things to work on. So enjoy some little experimentation for the next few months as far as goal adjacent opportunities and utilizing what we went over today to make sure your goals are at minimum helpful to you and not detracting you or more additive than I'm losing it. More additive than, why am I forgetting this word? Oh my God, this is terrible.
Let's just say subtracting.
Subtractive, sure. More additive than subtractive.
Reductive.
Right. But here's the piece: process and playful progress. As always, gang, stay positively jacked.